Welcome to C-Suite Perspectives, a signature series by the Conference Board. I'm Dr. Lori Esposito Murray, co-chair of the 2024 Distinguished Leadership Awards and former president of the Committee for Economic Development, the Public Policy Center of the Conference Board, and guest host of today's episode. In today's conversation, we will discuss leadership in challenging times, where we feature the outstanding CEOs who are recipients of CED's Distinguished Leadership Awards for Corporate Citizenship and Business Stewardship. Today, I have the privilege of speaking with our 2024 honoree, Raj Subramaniam, President, CEO, and Director of FedEx Corporation, a company we are all very familiar with and one of the world's largest transportation companies with over 530,000 team members worldwide and over 14 million deliveries daily. Raj succeeded the company's founder, Fred Smith, in June of 2022 as only the second CEO in FedEx history. Under Raj's leadership, FedEx is connecting the world responsibly and resourcefully, investing in communities, committing to sustainability, promoting diversity, and adhering to the highest standards of ethical behavior, all values with CED's mission very much aligned. Raj, welcome. We're so pleased to have you joining us today.
Well, thank you, Laurie. I do very much appreciate being here. Thank you, and thanks to the trustees for honoring me with the Distinguished Leadership Award.
Oh, it's totally our privilege, and I'd like to start a discussion on leadership and risk management, both top-of-line business issues today. Your 30-year career at FedEx has traversed significant disruption, including the challenges FedEx overcame with the pandemic regarding supply chains, and also the extraordinary demands of transporting the vaccine, which required very low temperatures. So from your experience, what are the key leadership lessons you've learned, and what would you identify as the key pillars of your leadership preparing for what has become very much navigating the unpredictable?
Well, I think it's a fantastic question. Let me just start with some of the broad principles that has helped me, and then we'll talk specifically about the last few years because it's been a very interesting few years, let's just say. I think from a leadership perspective, some of the things that I've held dear from the very get-go are pretty basic and straightforward, but I thought quite important. I think first and foremost, as a leader, whether it's a small group, a larger group, or a whole unit or a company, I think it's important for the leader to have a clear idea of the vision where that person needs to take that group forward. And I think that vision has got to come through judgment and experience and everything else. It cannot be a collection of just addition of all the inputs you get, and that becomes your vision. It's got to be a more your view on the matter as where we go on. The second thing is that we need to have the right team in place to be able to execute that vision, and that's a very, very important job for the leader. And once you have those two in place, the third job is that execution. And most importantly, your job then probably most becomes to be able to remove barriers for execution. And I truly believe in this upside down pyramid where the leader's job is really to support the front line to be able to execute the strategy. So those are the three kind of principles that I've held strong for many years, and it's kind of worked for me. Now, if you flip into the last few years, I mean, you have to look back at 30 or 35 years and look at trade and supply chains. There have been perturbations, but they have been relatively small, especially given history before that. And that's because of a couple of reasons. One is the fact that now we have robust and resilient networks like ours, especially moving the high-value trade. And secondly, the advances in technology. So it's been a 30-year period of relatively low perturbations, I mean, along a growth line. And then came the pandemic. And that now looks like a tsunami in comparison to what happened in the previous 30 years. And so we are now dealing with the bullwhip effect, so to speak, of what's happened there. And, honestly, we are now resetting back from these 5 to 5 years. If you look for like Rip Van Winkle and went to sleep for the last 4 or 5 years and woke up, you would say, oh, yeah, reasonably following the trend. You would have missed the ups and the downs. So that's kind of where we are. To lead in these, you have to be adaptable. There is no other way around it, and you have to stay very curious and keep your judgment to the side. And you have to take calculated risks, make some bets, on timing and things like that. But I think it's definitely been a challenging, but also a very good learning experience for all of us.
And so looking at what you just structured as the principles of the leadership values that you're following, team vision, team execution, company culture is really key, and also disruption.
Yeah,
Company culture
yeah.
leading through disruption. And you stated that FedEx's world-class culture, is how you put it, is the core of everything at FedEx. So help us understand how, during these transformational times, what are the major elements of how you are forming, creating, developing, reinforcing culture?
Well, this is a very, very important topic, Laurie. Actually, core and foundational to many, many other discussions, and core and foundational to FedEx. Fred Smith, as the founder of FedEx, has built a lot of phenomenal things from ground up. But one of the things that he gets less credit for, but he should get the most, is for the culture that he has built at FedEx. And it's very, in the construct is very simple. It's people, service, profit. You take care of your people, they deliver outstanding experience to our customers, which delivers profit for the company, which we reinvest back in our people. That unending circle of PSP, as we call it, has been with us from the very founding of FedEx, and is going to be there for years to come. No matter if you acquire new companies, if you acquire new technologies, get new people, a lot of things might change, but the culture will not. And that's an enduring feature of FedEx because it's worked for us. One of the things that I have had the luxury and pleasure of doing all my career at FedEx is to live and work in several different parts of the world. And people always ask me, how difficult is it to do business? And so many things are different, and all this stuff. Well, the interesting thing for me is the language of the country may be different, but the language of FedEx is it's the same. And that's because the foundation principles of our culture works across humanity, no matter where it is. And so that's what has really been very helpful for us. So especially when we went through this period in the last 4 or 5 years, where it's very, very clear what we are about, and that the mission about FedEx is very clear as well, and the idea that we connect people and possibilities around the world, and that we deliver on that FedEx Purple Promise every single day, and just supported by our culture helps us a lot. So when we had to deliver the vaccines, we were the one of two companies who could actually do it. And so it's always thus. We have a simple principle. If your neighbor's house is on fire and you're the one with the fire hose, you run to help. And that's kind of what we did. And because of the network of the temperature capabilities, of the time in capabilities, of speed, those are the only things that we could provide. And we were there to support the world, in fact, as we moved the vaccines and billions of PPEs and masks and other healthcare related material all around the world.
Well, what's interesting about particularly the vaccines and relates to culture and looking forward, in terms of rapid technological change, you were actually innovating prior to the pandemic that led to the ability to transport the vaccines at very low temperatures. So innovation is such a key part of the philosophy of FedEx and its implementation. And you've described FedEx as being at the intersection of the physical and digital worlds, which is an extraordinary opportunity for innovation. Can you explain what you mean by that intersection, and how you're assessing both the opportunities and risks?
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, that's a really, really, really interesting question, Laurie. Because when you think about FedEx, the whole idea, back in 1973, we created a whole new industry. And back, it was our founder said that the information about the package is as important as the package itself. Today, it just sounds a little bit blasé, but he said that in 1978. And that's when we invented tracking and tracing, for example. So innovation has always been in our DNA. Now you fast forward, we have almost 15 million packages every single day of high value goods that go through our system. $2 trillion of commerce that move through our system. We have 2 or 3 million shippers and 225 million recipients around the world that we connect every single day. So we are in the middle of this ecosystem. And so the fact that we have built arduously, I should say, very carefully over the last 51 years, build this physical network, which is impossible to replicate. But because of the fact that we have now built it, we are sitting on insights about that global supply chain every single day. So what we are now doing is to unlock the potential of the insights that we have through the data that we generate every single day in our network. And so because it won't happen without the farmer. That's the part where the physical and the digital connects. It's not up in there in vacuum. It's because of the fact that we have that unique, robust, and resilient physical network that connects the entire world that we are able to do this. So once we have it, now our mission has evolved to make supply chain smarter for everyone, using the information, using the data platforms that we have created. So supply chains smarter for everyone, including ourselves, to make our supply chains more efficient, to make our customer supply chains more efficient, and make the end consumer experience much more much better. And those are the things that we're connecting with on the digital front. So again, that's where we are heading, and it's a very exciting journey.
How are you assessing the impact of Gen AI on the efficiency and the robustness of your network?
Yeah, I think it's a very important development. Now, one of the things that people talk about when they talk about Gen AI and AI and ML in general is that, how do you make your current job responsibilities more efficient? And that's where you see a lot of conversations about it. That's a given to me, that we have to do. But my approach to this is much beyond that. The fact that a lot of the Gen AI and the solutions have been built on on public data of the internet, and the GPTs have been constructed based on that. But every company sits on proprietary data that can be very valuable. There's so much intelligence and insights that's residing in those proprietary data. And so if you're able to use these latest tools on your proprietary data to unlock even more value, then there's a lot more value to create. But the necessary condition to do that is to make sure that the data that you have is appropriately engineered and organized to be able to do this at scale. And that's not a given for a lot of folks. And fortunately for FedEx, we began this journey back in 2020, and not knowing really that there's going to be a Gen AI revolution to be come in the future. But the fact that we moved early gives us an advantage to be able to leverage the data that we have inside to be able to provide value in different parts of the value supply chain. So that's something that we are continuing to build on and generate value every single day.
We're going to take a short break and be right back with more of my conversation with Raj Subramaniam.
What does the future of work mean for your employees? How will your company navigate ESG? Will there be a global recession? At the Conference Board, our experts translate the latest research and economic analysis into insights and real-time problem solving for your organization. Membership at the Conference Board provides your team with an assortment of knowledge, from economics, marketing and communications, ESG, public policy, and human capital. As a member, you'll have access to our center experts, member-exclusive events, data and benchmarking tools, and peer sharing that will help you understand the present and shape the future. Consider becoming a Conference Board member today by visiting www.conference-board.org.
Welcome back to C-Suite Perspectives. I'm your host, Dr. Lori Esposito Murray, co-chair of the 2024 Distinguished Leadership Awards and former president of the Committee for Economic Development, the Public Policy Center of the Conference Board. I'm joined by Raj Subramaniam, President, CEO, and Director of FedEx Corporation. So I'd like to turn to the global transformations that are happening, and FedEx is at the tip of the spear of the global economy. The economic growth in China and India is central to the global economic growth, and these are two nations accounting for nearly half of global growth this year. FedEx entered the Chinese market in 1984, and India has been described as a strategic priority for FedEx. So given that, can you share your insights on the opportunities and challenges ahead in both of these large economies for businesses?
How much time do you have, Laurie? This is a very I just came on around the world trip, and I hit both. I was both in China and India. First and foremost, they're very, very different markets, and so let me start with China, for example. As you said, we entered the market in 1984. I lived in Hong Kong for 7 years in 1996 and saw our development of FedEx in China upfront and personal, and it was very, very exciting. The reality is China is a manufacturing center for the world, and represents roughly 28 to 30% of global manufacturing. And that's where we are. We are in the business of moving high value goods, and manufacturing is a key place to be. So I think as the China grew and their percentage of manufacturing, the world grew, FedEx grew right with it. And so we now have a very we are a referendum on everybody else's supply chain, so to speak. And so as people's supply chains have been connected more and more towards China, that has continued to grow. So that's the background for FedEx in China. And as you look at China now, the supply chain patterns are now changing, and we are watching it live every single day. And so with different kind of patterns evolving, meaning the finished goods are not coming directly from China anymore. They're more intermediate goods, and they're moving to other parts of the world, and from there to the consuming centers of the world, like United States and Europe and so on. The good news for FedEx is we are here, there, and everywhere. It doesn't matter where you are. We can move FedEx capacity much faster than manufacturing capacity can move, and we are at the ground because we understand the market signals at the very granular level, and we are very tactile in that sense. So it's an evolving supply chain pattern, and we are very much connected to the traffic that is going in and out of China to the world, China to different parts of the world, and we have a hub in Guangzhou in South China, for example. So that's that, and in India is a different story. In India is, from a manufacturing perspective, they represent today about 2.8%. So, 1/10 the size of China. However, there's aspiration for that percentage to be significantly higher than that. And infrastructure is being put in place in India to support that kind of development. So there's a lot of excitement in India as well, not only for domestic India consumption, but also India's export of manufacturing to the world. So we are, actively working to understand how those patterns are evolving. But India is also beyond that. In that sense, not only our core business, but also a center for technology and talent. And so not only are my interests from India that have a three-pronged strategy, is of course build out our core business, especially as manufacturing continues to expand in India, but also become a technology hub for the whole world and a talent hub for the whole world, especially as we are now significantly moving forward with our digital transformation. So very important markets, slightly different reasons, but a critical priority for us.
That's really fascinating. And, key part of that, of course, is trade policy and what's happening in trade. And, as you said, you have a very bird's eye view of all of these trends and patterns. But global trade and globalization have been under pressure, as you know, and is actually in retrenchment. And you've described trade as the lifeblood of the global economy and economic growth, which raises the standard of living. So what should business leaders do to build a more inclusive global economy? What should be the priorities for action, particularly on trade policy?
Yeah, trade as a percentage of GDP is a good measure to see how trade is going over the past many years. And you can, as you said, I think it was from 1975, 1980 onwards to about middle of the last decade. It was in a secular trend, was an increase of trade as a percentage of GDP, and then it has flatlined since then. We believe in this that the free and fair trade is good for humanity, because then you're allowing free flow of goods across the world in a way that improves standards of living across the world. And I think it was Secretary Cordell Hull Secretary of State, who remarked that when goods cross borders, that armies rarely do. And so I think we should do everything in our power to make sure that while there are some issues with trade, that we need to address those, but do not throw the baby out of the bathwater, and to create the right framework to make sure that there is free and fair trade. And some of the non-tariff barriers even can be smoothed out, and to make sure that the people are connected across the world. And so that's what we try to do. That's what we advocate for. And if you look at the survey of small and medium customers, 70+% are in support of free trade. So I think there's a little bit of education required now, especially to people to understand, what exactly trade means to people. The distributed gain that happens from trade is important, but there is some concentrated, pain that people always focus on, and there should be more done in those regard. But people should not forget the fact that there's also a huge distributed gain that everyone gains from trade, and it'll be dangerous to walk away from some of that.
So I'd like to end with a final question on sustainability. And sustainability goals are a big challenge for all large enterprises, but particularly for FedEx, because it relies so heavily on transportation. Under your leadership, this is a top priority, and I'm hoping you could share your sustainability goals and how you're planning to achieve them.
Yeah, I mean, from a FedEx point of view, anything, we are only practical, and so we put these goals out there. We have a goal of being carbon neutral by 2040, but we thought about how we could accomplish some of these tasks and what is possible and what's still yet to be solved for. So we have 5,000 facilities around the world. We think we can solve for those using carbon neutral solutions, and I think between this time frame we can get that done. We have 200,000 motorized vehicles, and we think we can solve for those as well. Now, it requires a lot of work to be done, not only on FedEx's part, but also public-private partnerships and infrastructure that needs to get done. But it is possible to get that solved for. Then leaves the airline infrastructure, and the entire airline around the world. All the airlines contribute to, I think, 2 to 3% of overall carbon. But now the solutions for this are not so much well defined. People talk about sustainable aviation fuel, which is good, but today the supply demand of SAF is nowhere near close to solving the problem. So we recognize that there requires more fundamental solutions for this, and so we started up what's called now the Yale Center for Natural Carbon Capture, working with the Yale School, and we stood up this unit. You notice we don't have the FedEx name anywhere on it. It's basically for anyone to join the effort to do fundamental research, especially on natural carbon capture, to then solve for the carbon needs of the aviation industry. And so some work to be done. That's been stood up for now more than 2 years, and so we're looking forward to continuing that and creating more solutions to handle the airline. So, like I said, we are very practical. We think about what we can take care of, what's still yet to be done, what needs further work, and so it's a constant cycle of things. And I'm hopeful that all this will come to a point where we get to the final goal here.
There are many, many challenges. We've addressed some of them today, and it truly is our privilege, Raj, to be honoring you and profiling the leadership that you've provided on these many challenges, which is just the start of what's ahead. So thank you so much for joining us today, and we're very much looking forward to honoring you in October.
The honor is indeed mine, and I'm so grateful for CED to give me this award, and I look forward to seeing you all in October.
but we share many of the same goals and finding solutions to them. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thanks to all of you for joining us. I'm Dr. Lori Esposito Murray, and this series has been brought to you by the Conference Board.
You have been listening to C-Suite Perspectives, a podcast by the Conference Board.